menace to sobriety. Just a menace, just a menace, just a menace.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live from the Big Belly Comedy Club, coming to you from the podcast studio in a shipping container. Please welcome your host of Menace to Sobriety, Mr. Daniel O'Reilly.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Menace to Sobriety, your go-to podcast for all things sobriety, well-being, mental health, mindset, all that jazz. Each week we get a variety of people on here, all with inspiring stories to keep you on the straight and narrow, or to inspire you to get on the straight and narrow and bet yourself. And this week I truly am excited. Could be the best guest yet. I'm going to put it out there. One of the founding directors of SAS, Who Dares Win, from Channel 4, Ollie Ollerton. Ollie Ollerton?
Ollie Ollerton. That was a bit Somerset.
Ollie Ollerton, how you doing, mate?
Good to meet you, mate.
Oh my
Pleasure.
God, I'm buzzing for this.
Yeah, likewise.
I'm so exciting.
Yeah.
It's like we said. It's like I feel like I already know you. You know, our paths haven't like officially sort of collided.
Yeah.
But very tuned into your journey. Watch you obviously, like everyone else in the country, on SAS Who Dares Wins. There's so much more to your bio. Like it's, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done content around you as well.
I've seen it, mate. Mate, that tickled me.
Yeah. What was the last
Hancock.
one? Hancock, Matt Hancock. Yeah, you was in that clip. Yeah,
mate. I wasn't actually on that with Hancock.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. Because I stopped doing the UK one.
Oh right, of course you went to Australia.
I got cancelled, mate, like you.
Oh really? Oh yes.
Yeah. I got
with Ant. Well, did you get cancelled?
Oh, before Ant. So when it was around that whole diversity piece and everything else, it was like 4 white alpha males that, you know, it wasn't politically correct.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it was a good thing for me, because then the Australian one kicked off.
Yeah.
And it's never been my focus to be on TV. You know, it gives me exposure. It's a platform for me, but it's not my focus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can only handle one filming slot a year.
Yeah.
So
the whole, we won't spend too much time on it, but the whole diversity thing, it kind of like completely removes the point of the show. Like the whole point is, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, you have your ability and mindset has to get you through, right?
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing, you know, when it did happen that I got offloaded from that program, it was like I did go, you know, it was in the Sun, and it was, you know, in the interview, and I said on there, it's like, I'm not racist one bit, you know, but when it comes to like building a team, it doesn't matter what race, what color, what gender you are.
Yeah.
Can the person do the job? And that's the thing around it. You know what I mean? So it was just like, to me, it was, and also what really puzzled me at the time was, you know, the stuff around mental health. This was just as we were going through COVID and everything else. Yeah. And then bang, you just offload someone like that because it's not politically correct. I mean, I recovered from that because I was happy to get going, but it was a blow to me. I tell you what, the only thing that affected me, to be quite honest, it was my ego that was challenged. Yeah. You know what I mean? As far as logistically for me, doing the show, it was better for me, because I almost laughed when it happened, because I tell you, when it got to the final sort of eps of that series, I was getting to the point where I wasn't enjoying it, I was enduring it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I was never going to hand in my notice and go, you know what, I've had enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These are the things that hold us back, you know, because I was on that TV show and everything else. So when I actually got the phone call, I was like, I just laughed to myself and went, you got what you wish for. Yeah, and that's how the universe works. The fact of the matter is, they wanted to, you know, and
oh right, they swapped you.
They swapped me for another guy, so
to tick a diversity box.
Exactly,
man.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, it's we see, you see it in the Christmas adverts. You see it everywhere now. Yeah. It blows my mind. I mean, there was a big Christmas advert that everything was anti-Christmas. Like they were getting rid of everything, and you know they made sure that they had the gay person, the you know, the trans person, and then I was like, where's the fucking kids and the Christmas presents? You know what I mean? It's mad, but look, such is the world we live in now.
Such is the world. I think as long as you're aware of it and you just, you know, you can smile at it and just go whatever.
But from a mental health perspective, it's interesting that you mentioned ego before we get into things, because I've been battling mine recently, and I've been reading a book about ego, and I constantly the only thing I find difficult with being in the public eye is dealing with criticism from like trolls and people, you know. And I used to take it so personally. I used to be like, well, you don't know me and don't say that about me, and that's really mean, and fucking how dare you. But then I realised it's just like, because I want to punch them in the face and I can't. It's like it's like your ego.
It's your digital punch in the face.
Yeah.
Your ego wants to punch you.
I'm like, and then I I realised it's because sometimes if you believe your own hype too much, like you put yourself on a pedestal where you think I'm this great person, you can't talk to me like that, when really we're all the same, and it's just some knobhead that's having a bad day. It's hard.
100%. But the thing is, it's like, this is the way that, you know, I've gone a lot, especially when, we'll talk about that when I went into this house and I really started to delve deep into how the operating system works.
Yeah.
Which was incremental in me, or fundamental in me actually getting on top of my mental health and my drinking and stuff. And really, at the end of the day, we're always focused on what could go wrong. We're always focused on the negative, and this spans back to our first footsteps on this earth. We're never going to remember all the nice fruits we had to eat. We're always going to remember the one bad berry that made us ill and could have killed us.
Because we have to.
And that's the way that so it's like the other week, I mean, I put a post on, it was a couple of months ago, my new book came out, How to Survive Almost Anything. I was on there doing a thing, I had my shorts on, and I'm like doing this, and I'm getting loads of great comments, and everyone's going, oh, the book, I've had the book, it's great, this, and I'm going, yeah, this is great. Get down the bottom, and someone goes, have you skipped leg day?
Just ruined your day.
Like, fuck!
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? For the next 24 hours, I'm like,
I'm the same.
I'm going to say to it, you know, and it's like, that's the way that we're wired. We're wired to focus on the negative shit and then forget all the good things that have happened. That's just the way we're wired. It's just, we are wired to focus on all the negatives. Because when it comes to a survival aspect, we've got to look out for all the things that are going to threaten us. You know, so that's the way we're wired.
That completely makes sense. And we kind of just touched on when I came in that I boxed at the weekend, obviously York Hall.
Yeah.
You boxed there as well, did you?
I did, mate. I kissed the deck.
What was that on?
That was on, we did, I think, how many years? That was a few years ago. And it was on, it was like, I forget the name. It was Special Forces, like SAS, SBS, and it was challenging the US Navy SEALs and stuff like that.
Right.
So basically, it's supposed to be for novices, and you know, I then realised that when I got to York Hall, that I was fighting a professional MMA fighter.
That's not fair.
No, it's not. It's like, but for me, it's like I got there, and you know, I was talking about this the other day. You know, I got there, and there was a lot of people supporting me. I'd raised a lot of money and everything else, and one side of me said, you know, you could just pull out of this. You're gonna get knocked. You're probably gonna get knocked out. You should pull out. You're gonna look stupid. But then I thought, you know what? There's a lot of people here for me. I'm gonna stare this bloke in the eyes, and I'm gonna do my best.
That's brilliant.
And I went up there, and you know, by the time I actually went nose to nose with this guy, my job was everything I wanted to achieve had been achieved.
Yeah, you walked in the ring.
Yeah, I walked in the ring, and it's, as you know, Dan, it's like that. The build up to the fight, it's the journey. It's not once you get there, and you know, it's the journey that's where the growth is, and everything else. So for me, you know, when I did stare him in the eyes, and I fucking gave it my best. You know what I mean? I got I got some great pictures in that 1.5 minutes.
That's
so
what
I got everything I needed.
Mate, well, you lasted 1.5 minutes. That's all right. That's good, man. I mean, I was the same with my MMA fight. I was like, I fought Harvey from So Solid Crew, and he beat me up quick. And but after it was over, I was like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I was like, fucking, I've done something that 99% of people will never do, or wouldn't have the bottle to do. But what I wanted to talk to you about was, you know, for going back to what you were saying, is I trained really hard. I've been training hard for a long time. I'm really confident in my ability as a boxer. I knew that the other guy was actually the underdog that I was fighting. He was older than me, and I didn't think that he had as much ability. So really, I should have been like, you know, it's going to not a walk in the park. You know, you got to be careful when you're boxing. Yeah. But you know, I should have been confident, but I managed to hold that confidence right up until the day of it. And then when the nerves set in, the mind just went to what if. And that's why I got so much respect for people in the armed forces, people that are in these really dodgy situations, or boxers or any combat sports people. You perform completely different depending on your mindset. So I knew that if I walked in with that really bad mindset, I knew that I had work to do to get my mindset correct for the walk in. You know, I needed to be fired up and confident, but I had to do a lot of soul searching and working it out and stuff like that to twist it. How big a part of that is that with your job and what you've done, do you think?
Yeah, previous job. I think the big thing is, like, we as humans, again, and I go into this human psychology thing, and you know, I studied a lot about the evolution of where we came from.
Right.
And the patterns and the behaviors that have been created and passed down through the ages.
Like the biology behind it.
Yeah, the biology, because it was like when I talk about when I went into this house, 2015, I came back to the UK,
Right.
and I was like broken. I'd come back on the brink of suicide, and I was like, I've been drinking to destruction.
Where were you when you come?
So basically, it's like I'd actually moved to Australia. So I came out of the military 2000. I then said I was never going to go back to a war zone. I ended up back in a war zone as a mercenary, a contractor.
Right.
So I did that for 4 years, and then I'd moved to Australia in that time with my girlfriend, who was Australian, and then I moved out to Southeast Asia. I did the most incredible thing I've ever done, because for me, when I went in the Special Forces, it didn't click. Do you know what I mean? I don't hear many people saying this that actually got through to the Special Forces. That I got there and I went, this ain't for me. That's
crazy.
Yeah, because since 14, I was like, I'm going to join the military. This is going to be it. I'm going to join the Royal Marines, and that was a dream for me. You know what I mean? As a 14-year-old boy, I was like, fucking hell, you imagine if I got in the Special Forces. And 10 years old, I saw the Iranian embassy attacked by the SAS, and that's where the seed was sown in me.
You said, I want to be them guys. I want to be that guy.
It was like, holy fuck, you know what I mean? It was amazing. I was like, I want to be that. So I finally got through to that. But when I finally got through and passed selection and everything else, I was one of, I think it was 7 out of about 250 that got through in a 6-month process. And it was the second time I did it, so I had to do it twice. I had a little mishap on the first one, which was interesting.
What was that?
Well,
go on.
Why did I lead into that?
Have you not spoken about it before?
Yeah, no, I do. I do, but you know what I mean? With all of my stuff, Dan, fucking hell, it'll be over in an hour. It'll be like that. That'll be one story. But anyway, I'll cut it short. But basically, I did Special Forces selection all the way through. You do the final part, and it's the escape and evasion. So they're simulating you getting caught behind enemy lines, and they make it extremely real.
Right,
You know what I mean? So for 5 days, you're actually on the run. You've been given World War I fatigues, hairy World War I fatigues, your boots with no socks. It's the middle of winter, and you've got to go about 100 Ks. And this is across Wales, and you sleep in the day. You're supposed to sleep in the day, but you can't because you're that fucking freezing cold. You've got no food in you. And then you sleep at night. And then every 24 hours, you've got to meet an agent who gives you the next location. He gives you a moldy sandwich with a piece of moldy cheese in that you've got to share between 6 people. And you get that every 24 hours. So you've got to make your way all the way through. And basically, there's 3 rules: no civilian contact, no vehicles, and no buildings. Now, everyone, I'm not going to say cheat, uses their initiative.
Right, okay.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's one. Anyway, I'm not going to make excuses for that, but the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, the reason the Special Forces are so good at what they do is because they make it work, whatever. They get the job done, whatever. So anyway, to me, it's using initiative, and everyone does it. But the thing is, you can't get caught for it because there's rules. You know what I mean? So anyway, we ended up. Like, we're gonna day one when you're all warm and nice, not too bad. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna follow the rules, mate. You know what I mean? We're not gonna cheat. And then as soon as you get cold, you're like, fuck it. Where's the barn? You know what I mean? So next thing we're in a barn, we're that freezing cold, mate. It was like perverted. It was like I can remember we were working in twos and we had each other's boots off with their feet under our armpits, trying to warm each other's feet up. We're that cold. So we're in this barn, and the next thing we're like, shall we knock on the door? Because the great thing is, right, about this selection process, like the SAS beforehand, with the local community, they get everyone in and like, right, they throw a big party, get the locals all pissed, and they put a big screen up and saying, if you see anyone like this coming round your farms and stuff, here's the emergency number, callers will come get them.
All right.
Now, the Welsh being the Welsh, they do exactly the opposite. They're the resistance.
Oh, really?
So they go into the shops the week before, they pull everything off the shelves, they get the house fully stocked up, and they're waiting for the little knock on the door to open the door, get the lads in and feed them. So anyway, we ended up knocking on the door, and it was almost like they were expecting us. And they'd sensed we were in the barn. You know what I mean? So anyway, we went into this house. Fucking hell. It was like you could smell the roast on.
Oh,
you know what I mean? She had 2 different roasts on, the big open fire. And it was just like heaven. Absolute heaven. So we stayed there for a little bit. And then we said, we're not getting in the car. Whatever we do, we're not getting in the car. We'll do this. But the time was creeping up. And anyway, Glenn, the farmer, came back from the pub, absolutely shit-faced. like fell through the door, and he's like, lads, I'm going to take you to the next checkpoint. Don't worry. And we're like, you ain't taking this fucking anywhere, mate. You're shite. And he was like, no, I'm not driving. I'll get my handyman to drive. Anyway, cut long story short, said we're not getting in the van. 2 minutes later, we're in the van. On our way to the next RV. It's pitch black in the middle of Wales, and we get to the next RV. We're on this hill like this. We're like, let us out. There's helicopters flying around. There's fucking dogs out there. Everything, we're like, get us out quick. We're trying to get out the back doors of this van. They wouldn't open, and we're like, Glenn, help us. It's like, I'll get you out, lads. Don't worry. Anyway, we heard the door open. Next thing we hear, and we're like, fuck, what's that? One of the lads kicked the door open. We get into the woods. We get off. And we're like, thank fuck for that. Anyway, we then make our way the next morning or that night to the next RV to get the coordinates and the little sandwich. And fucking excited. After we got a belly full of roast pork and everything like that. Oh, do you want the sandwich, lads? And we're like, nah. Oh, yeah, of course we do. We're so hungry.
Oh, mate.
So anyway, but we went to the RV this time, and it was the DS, like the directing staff on the course, and they were like, come with us. And we're like, shit. And they took us off individual field interrogations and like, where you been then? And we're like, oh, yeah, doing the old doing the old escape and evasion stuff. Yeah, it's been really tough. And they're like, no, so you don't know Glenn, they named the cat, the dog, the fucking cows, everything, you know what I mean? The wife, everything. They were like, you don't know them. And we were like, oh, okay, they said, you better tell us the fucking truth. Otherwise, there's going to be consequences. And we told the truth, and there was fucking consequences. And it was like, you're off the course, you're gone.
What?
Yeah. So this is 2 days to being badged. And like the first time round, you're in that minimal...
How long's the course?
6 months.
Fuck.
So there's all your prep and up until that point as well. So there's 6 months of the course then, and this is the final stage of the course. So you are like, by that time, they've got your names on the lockers in the special forces. You know what I mean? You're done. You're pretty much done. There's rarely that people get to that point and then fail that stage.
How did that affect you? Was it bad?
Yeah, it's bad. But before I go on to that, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. How did they fucking
Glenn.
know?
Let me tell you about Glenn, because what had happened is Glenn had fallen out the car and smashed his head on the floor. That was the slap.
Oh, when you kicked the door open?
No. When he got out, we kicked the back doors open. He got out the passenger side.
Yeah.
And it was because it was on a slope. He fell over
slipped and
straight
smashed
away.
his head.
Smashed his head. So then he's in hospital. He's in hospital, and he calls the police in and says, I've been beat up by the SAS.
What? He didn't know what happened?
No. Well, either that or he's trying for a bit of comp.
Oh,
yeah.
You wanker.
So yeah, it was like, because, and then we got...
And then they were like, all right, well, so they went, old Bill went to your guys, and they
they
were...
had to our guys. And what they'd done is they had patrol pictures. So we had the only black guy, on the whole course, we had the only black guy in our patrol, so it was easy to pick out the patrol that it was. So he's like, that one, all of us binned back to our units, and I had to go up there, and going back to your question, that was the hardest thing for me, you know what I mean? It was like, because I was at that point, I was going to leave. I was like, I'm going to leave or special forces. And then I did what the mind does. It's like looking for the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And it starts to think, when it's challenging, you got something in front of you. It's the same when you stop drinking.
Yeah.
It's like, it's telling you you're going to fail, because it doesn't want you to step into that unknown territory. You know what I mean? So I then decided I was going to leave. But anyway, because I was given a bit of inspiration by my officer, I actually said, I'll give special forces a go.
One more go.
Yeah. Or a go at the start. This is at the start of the first time.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I was either going to leave or special forces. So I made the course.
And you've done the 6 months.
I've done the 6 months. So then going back to my unit, I was like, I just wanted to go outside. I want to be a civilian. I thought, this is like the universe telling me I need to go.
Yeah.
But because I'd been so close, do you know what I mean? I think when I look back now, I think it was my ego that didn't allow me to leave. It was like there was unfinished business. It was my ego that didn't want to look like a failure. So I went back and did it all again.
And passed.
Passed. And then I even got through to that at the end of that, and I just went, fucking hell, is this it?
Yeah.
It never really connected for me. And I look back at a lot of things, and I think half the time you can make up a narrative that makes sense, and whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but it's my perception of it. And that is the fact that from an early age, I don't know if you know this, I got attacked by a chimp.
Really? I shouldn't laugh, sorry, but
no, you should laugh, because it's fucking hilarious.
I've just never had anyone say
to laugh, and he's like, oh really?
Yeah.
Do you want to hold my hand, mate?
Yeah, I'm like, I've never heard that before. What did the chimp do to you?
The chimp fucking nearly killed me at 10.
Oh.
So ripping me to bits in the circus. So
what the fuck? So you're at the circus with your family?
No, I was at the circus with my brother and his best mate, and they were just setting the place up. So I went into the circus and can we have a look around? They were like, yeah, no problem, lads. It was 1980, no health and safety. You can walk around a fucking zoo with wild animals. And so we went into this, and I sort of walked away from my brother and his best mate, walked into this place I shouldn't have been, and the baby chimp there in this open expanse around the back of the big top. And mate, I started like engaging with it. I was like infatuated with Tarzan at that age as a kid. You know what I mean? It was like I'd watched it that day. So that to me was like a little piece of Hollywood. You know what I mean? It was amazing.
10 years old, you're still such a little baby though, really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a baby chimp. I wasn't much bigger than it. So I walked over to it. Next thing, it starts feeding me. You know what I mean? It's picking stuff off the floor, feeding me. I'm like, fuck me. I'm like this baby David Attenborough. It's an incredible experience. And then when I'm sliding the food down my cheek, throwing it over my shoulder, I'm not going to eat it. It's disgusting. And then this moment like lasted forever. It was timeless. It was so peaceful, everything else. And then that peace was broken like a fighter jet cutting through the skies. I heard a roar I still remember to this day. And in the shadows behind under a trailer was Mummy, that clearly saw me as a threat and just came at me at Mach 10 to kill me, basically. And I'm stood there like a deer in the headlights. And I'm like, I need to move. And then before I had the chance to move out of there, this thing pounced through the air 20 foot over the baby chimp. Blue sky turned to black, landed on my chest, pinned me to the floor, and just went mental. It was like a drummer in a rock band, and I was the drum.
Wait, was it punching on you?
Just like hammer fist down onto my chest. It pinned me to the floor. It was on top of me, and then next thing, all blood's flying around everywhere. It started pulling skin like chunks off my arms and that, and there's blood flying around everywhere. And this is the moment I reflect on a lot, because like that moment, I went somewhere that I never knew existed. You know, one side of me wanted to just lay there and do nothing and just accept what was happening. But there was another thing. I just heard a voice saying, it doesn't end today. You're not going to die today. And that, I then tapped into something that gave me this inner potential, this inner strength I never knew existed. And that gave me enough courage to retaliate. And I managed to retaliate enough, get my knee up to my chest. I smashed this chimp in its chest with my foot. A couple of seconds to get away. And then I realised I wasn't moving fast enough. I saw the chimp get to its feet. It was even angrier now, blood on its teeth, came at me on its final attack. And it was an inch away from my face before the chain caught it.
Fuck. Oh, mate. Fuck yeah. No.
Which my ex-wife wished the chain wasn't there, but I'm glad it was.
That's like something out of a fucking movie, man.
That's crazy, man. That's wild.
But that changed you, man. That must have changed
I mean, for
you.
good and bad, right? I look at the value of it. The value for me was the fact I took a few things from that, and that was
You didn't give up.
I didn't give up, and that tapping into that potential would then help me get through Special Forces selection twice, and then also bring me back from the brink of suicide on my own, which I'd never advise anyone to try and do. But also the fact it taught me that regardless of any situation you're in, you'll always have a choice, which I think really for me, when I was thinking about suicide, was something that really benefited me, because suicide to me and thinking about, you know, I didn't attempt it, but I was there, and that's bad enough in itself, because if you think about something long enough, it expands. So for me, tapping into that, knowing that there was, you know, that I'm not going to be steered towards, you know, because I was talking about this last night, actually. That path of least resistance is the one thing that goes, you know what, suicide would be so much easier. It would, you know, it just alleviates everything. I stop being a burden to everyone. Because that's the path you can see. The other path, like changing who you are as a person and stopping all these destructive behaviors and everything else, you can't see the path.
No.
You know what I mean? And that experience as a 10-year-old really helped me in that, because I knew that regardless of your situation, you have choices.
Yeah, and that stuck with you.
Yeah, yeah. But then the negative side of it, Dan, is the thing that, you know, there's 3 things that influence the subconscious mind. And that is, like, we are programmed between the ages of 0 to 7. We're on constant record. You learn more in those years than you learn all of your life. So all of us as adults, we're walking around, and 95% of that program is what was installed at 0 to 7.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So the second thing is high emotional impact. Now, I was 10 years old, so this was a high emotional impact. So what happened, that's another thing that can affect the subconscious mind, which then reflects on your habits and behaviors. And then the third thing to change it is practice and repeat. You know, if you repeat stuff long enough, then it changes your subconscious and your programming. But for me, that was the fact that high emotional impact. And you imagine what I was doing like this. I've just come up with this recently, and I'm always studying stuff, mate, to try and make sense of the past to help me move forward in the future. And the fact of the matter is, I was having the best day of my life. It was the fucking most incredible experience. I went down to the circus, saw my little Hollywood legend cheetah. You know what I mean? It was the best thing ever, and it was timeless and everything else. Then all of a sudden, absolute
Bang.
chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos. Now, when I look, I repeated that scenario through every aspect of my life.
You looked for it in war.
It looked for it, and this was the thing for me. I was searching for a war.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I wanted the special forces, the military and everything. I was searching for this war. It wasn't until I crashed and burned years later that I realized the war was inside, not out there.
That is so interesting. So like, and I think addiction falls in that. I think like, if you imagine like as traumatic as that was, there must have, after that, there must have come elements of light or elements of like escapism from that fear that you felt, you know, that fear coming back to you, trying to escape it maybe, or even like that, or even though it was horrific, like that feeling you got from it. It's like, it's so complex, isn't it?
Yeah.
An event like that, like, so for me, the only thing I can compare it to is when I was younger, I had quite a traumatic upbringing, a terrible divorce, and you know, it was quite, you know, horrible stuff happened, whatever. And I get the sense that when we're younger and traumatic stuff happens to us, we try and escape it, right, in our mind.
Yeah.
And later on in life, when we find like alcohol and we can escape life, we lean towards it for a similar feeling. Do you think that's right?
I think that's 100% right. But I think really when it comes to alcohol, and I'm not saying this is the same with everyone, we usually start on the alcohol journey because we're masking an emotion.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
whether it's fear, guilt, shame,
or going out meeting chicks.
All right.
You know what I mean? So you're renting a personality as soon as when you first start drinking, you rent a personality. And like I was saying to you before, Dan, I think there's for the likes of yourself, when people are so sold into the identity of who you are, and that for you before you became sober was like this drinking, one of the lads, you know, whatever,
pure lad culture.
Exactly. And for you to like break the chain of that, because that becomes your identity. But the thing is, the real you is the byproduct.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that fight to get away from that and create something new, that's a battle and a half, mate. But that, exactly like you said there, you use the drink to mask that emotion, and that's why it starts. So what happens when you usually start as a kid is for social and this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. But then it becomes your go-to for everything. Oh, I'm struggling with this, bang. I'm struggling with that, bang. Snorting all kinds of, you know, whatever it is, and it's that becomes the identity of who you are. Like for me in the special forces and the military in general, I was the party guy.
Right.
No, everyone relied on me to be the one that was running the party, the life and soul of the party. Now, that's how it felt to me anyway. But you know what I mean? And that became my identity. And I was living up to that identity. And I was quite prepared to sacrifice my mental health and everything else and absolute chaos in my life to keep up the identity to please the audience.
Yeah. I'm so, oh, mate, all of this, I mean, we could speak for hours because all of this stuff is, everything you've learned, I want to learn. Like, I think I've got this mental health group, Men and Their Emotions, and it's filled full of lads. We've got about 50,000 lads in there now that are all, they can post anonymously what they're going through, right? And then the other lads can chip in if they want to be anonymous. And it's like market research for me. I look at it. It's like just watching like what all these lads are going through, and I try and find patterns. And I look at it. I'm like really into it, and they're like my guinea pigs. Do you know what I mean? They're all like, we're all sort of in it together, all a little bit screwed up, trying to work out why. And it's like a community, and I love it. But one thing that I just see with us men, and it's like exactly what you said, it's like our life changes, right? And like you say, I feel like we create an identity through substances, drink, or whatever this negative behavior is. It could be anything, right? And as our life changes, we can't change. We are, like you're saying, you're that guy. And then suddenly you get to a point where you want to change, but you're scared to find out who you are. And for me, sobriety, and your friend that's in here as well, we were talking about it before, the hardest part of sobriety for me was dealing with who was inside. Yeah. And finding out, you know, first of all, dealing with the shame and guilt and regret of what it was, but also like, fucking hell, who are you? Because, you know, what I thought strength was
Yeah.
fucking carnage.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I thought risky behaviour was strength.
Yeah.
And carnage. And we have to go through, like I said before, going like mourning our own old life.
Yeah.
And actually, and this is what I think the difficult thing is for all the lads that are out there and that have gone through similar things to me and you. Is it's too uncomfortable, and it's just easier. It's too uncomfortable to find who you are, and it's easier to go back. So how did you break through that? What was your personal experience with that?
Well, the thing for me was, I mean, up until the point I sort of crashed and, I mean, what happened with me?
Yeah, what was, if you don't mind me asking, what was your rock? How did the drink stop?
Well, the thing is, it was an escalation of situations.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It was a battle for a long time. It wasn't just one thing that just went, you need to stop. You know. So for years I started to reflect, and I think it's because you're so confused about who you actually are, like you just spoke about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you come into this whole confusion about who you are, and that becomes frustrating. And one thing for me, I came from the Special Forces. Said I was never going to go back to a war zone. Shortly afterwards, I'm in a war zone as a contractor. And I was making bad choices, like terrible choices. My drinking got worse than ever when I left the military. You know, you'd think it'd be worse when I was in the military, but it was worse when I left. And for me, I was like working in Iraq. Now, there was a lot of drinking. This is back in 2003 when the Americans liberated, or was it invaded? They can't fucking work out the difference, can they?
That's a whole other story.
But for I was so it was a big drinking culture. You know, you used to work hard, and then you used to put down the weapons at night and get on the sauce every night, and all kinds of other stuff and everything. It was crazy. You know, right in the center of a war zone in Baghdad, and we were actually in Saddam Hussein's old villas. You know what I mean? We'd hired all these villas. We actually had his cars that we had a rental service there. It was a mental world, and we were renting out our cars. They were Saddam Hussein's old cars and his sons. It was a mental world, loads of money. It was ridiculous, and it was like the wild west of the modern world. And on a Thursday, we used to have that was party night, because Friday was like their weekend. It was just one day. Friday's the weekend. So every Friday we were drinking all the way through the week anyway. But I think I was drinking more than everyone else, because when everyone went to bed in the villa, I would make sure that I had a stash in there to knock myself out. It's the only way I could really sleep. And I used to sleep every night with a pistol under my pillow, not knowing if the door was going to get bashed in, not knowing if I was going to make it through the night or what. It was a horrible place to live. But I took it a step further. So we used to have these parties, and it was like you would go to someone else's villa, like another security company or someone else would be throwing a party on a Thursday night, and it was debauchery, mate, absolute debauchery. So you go there, and you go there with your body armor on, your weapons on, you go there in your armored cars or whatever, you'd stay there the night, and you had to stay there, you know what I mean? You couldn't leave. So you
couldn't be walking around pissed.
No, you couldn't be walking around pissed, but you couldn't go back to your own villa. Do you know what I mean? Once you were in that compound, you had to stay there. Yeah, because of obvious reasons, the threat and everything else. So me, I've been fucking drinking whiskey and all sorts all night. And at 12 o'clock, I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going. I want to go back to my own villa. So anyway, I come out. I managed to get out of the party, put my body armor on, my AK-47, got in my armored car. And mate, I was that fucking drunk. I wasn't driving. I was aiming. You know what I mean? I was aiming the car. I couldn't even drive. I couldn't even drive it properly. And I got lost in Baghdad.
Pissed up.
Fucking hell. I had no fucking ID on me, no nothing. All I had was an AK-47, my body armor. Now, if the Americans catch you, you're fucked. If the militia catch you, you're clearly fucked. Yeah. And I'm like driving around almost like it's like a honey trap. I'm pretty sure if the militia saw me, they'd be like, that must be a trap. Yeah.
We ain't falling for that.
Look at that. Yeah. I can go for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was that shit-faced, and I was like, I started to panic. I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? So I managed to I thought I need to get to high ground to see where I am in Baghdad, because I know there was a tower that was in the line with where the villa was. So I managed to drive up in this armored car, got to the top of this bridge so I could get a look over Baghdad, and I can remember opening the door. My AK-47 fell on the floor, and I followed it. You know what I mean?
Hell,
so I'm on the floor, and I'm like, and that was like almost like it hit the deck, and I went, what are you doing?
It's like that Welsh farmer.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was a Welsh farmer with an AK-47
In Baghdad,
in a war zone.
In a war zone.
So I mean that in itself was one thing, and then like another time I was, so I managed to see where I was going, get the car in the right direction, and then start to see things.
The next day, were you like fucking close?
Yeah, but then back on it.
Fucking hell.
You know what I mean? Then back on it, and then I was doing another time I went out, and it was like no white men on the streets. You get a thing from the DOD, Department of Defense, would send an email saying at the moment there's a mega high threat, high chance of kidnap, do not go out. And I'd be like, I'm going out. You know what I mean? I can remember that day I was in the villa. We had like a big Iraqi security team. So, I said to the boys, I said, right, I want to go out and I want to buy a rug. You know,
why?
Why? I don't know. Well, I do know because I want to be a rebel. Everything I was told not to do.
Yeah.
And this for me, this goes back to me. When I look back now and in reflection, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it never won any wars, but it's great for reflection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I look back now and I had a crazy experience with ayahuasca, which helped me deal with a lot of this stuff in Costa Rica.
Is this after?
This is after, yeah. This is 2019 when I actually realised this stuff. But it took me back, without going into that story because it's quite a long one, but when I did ayahuasca, it took me back to the boy when I was in the circus. And when I actually went through the whole attack, which was fucking horrible, absolutely horrible. I went through the whole emotions of it and everything, and it was like I relived that experience to unravel it. I needed to do that. And actually, when I was going through that attack on ayahuasca, it's hallucinogenic, so it's taking you to a different place on a different parallel that seems extremely, well, it is real.
Was it in Peru you did it?
It was actually in Costa Rica.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Costa Rica.
With the shaman and everything.
With the shaman,
wow.
The whole lot. It was a proper setup. And I can remember in that, and I was being attacked by this chimp, and it was the most horrible thing because every time I reflected on that experience, there was no emotion, there was no noise or anything. It was just, I just had a fight with the chimp kind of thing. But when I went through it with the ayahuasca,
you felt it.
I felt it, and I was screaming for my mum. I was in absolute shock and terror and horror, and that's what I needed to relive to unravel it, and everything else. But while I was being attacked by the chimp, something freeze framed. And it dropped me and it said, what would have happened if you hadn't have fought that day? And I lay down. I know this is a bit out there. I lay down. I actually I opened my eyes. My wife was there staring into my eyes. And I said, don't be scared. Come with me. And we went into the spirit world and all this. And it was incredible. Anyway, I went in there. I didn't want to come back. It was so amazing. It was like we're no longer physical. We're in this spirit world. And it was just incredible. And then I heard this voice saying, they need you. So I actually went back, came into my physical body again. And my whole lesson for that afterwards, I was like there was something in me that was saying, stop fighting. Stop fighting. And that to me really reflected on everything. From that chimp attack all the way through my life, I've been fighting everything. Fighting my relationships, fighting the system. And I don't disagree with fighting the system because the shit they're coming out with is ridiculous. But there's a limit when it starts to affect your life and everything else. But, it was stop fighting. And for me, that was a typical case of that. All that time in Baghdad, right, you're not allowed out. I'm fucking going out.
And it's like you fought because of what happened to you with that animal. You thought that you needed something to fight or you're not going to survive.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So you're the 10-year-old you was like, just keep fighting, mate. Keep fighting, mate.
Yeah.
And when you didn't have a fight, you needed to find a fight.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'll tell you something now, that must be so difficult to switch off from. So your journey really started when you realised I have to stop fighting.
Yeah. It did, and that was the thing. And I then reflected through that on all aspects in my life when I'm doing that. And like I said, I'm all up for a bit of a fight if you don't agree. But the thing is, when it starts to affect who you are and it really negatively affects your life, then it's not a positive thing to do. Relationships, everything, it was. And when I go back to that whole experience, that's why I reflect on it so much. Like I talked about, I was in that great experience. Then it all of a sudden chaos. Everything in my life, my whole career in the special forces, everything, relationships with people, my parents and everything's nice, everything's good, everything's where it should be. Let's get the fucking grenade and throw that in and cause chaos.
You're not happy until there's
chaos. Cause chaos. And then I went into special forces and they teach you to be at comfort in chaos.
So you go over to Iraq in chaos and you're like, this ain't really chaos, man.
Yeah, I'm going to create some more.
I'll tell you what chaos is. Give me that bottle of whiskey and I'm getting the fuck out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Go down and buy a rug and And I went down that day and they're like, please, Mr. Ollie, don't go out. Don't go out. I said, I'm buying a rug. I need to buy a rug. Went down to like this.
On your own?
Well, I had the security team with me. So I had like myself in a car, I had my BG team. So I was tooled up. The Iraqis were tooled up. And they didn't want to go. And I was like, look, we're going. Anyway, I managed to get to the Mansour district in Baghdad where the rug shops were. And I like get out the car, run into the shop. And I'm in the shop and we had to get on the floor to do the deal because we didn't want anyone to see us. You know, anyone to walk past and go, there's a white man in the shop down the road. So I'm on the floor and I've got like 2,000, it was 2,000 quid for this Iranian silk rug. It's beautiful. And I was handing out the cash to him. And as I'm doing it, the security team come flying through the door like, Mr. Ollie, we must go, the militia. And anyway, there was like, they came in, grabbed the rug. I paid in the $2,000, grabbed my AK-47. I ran out the door and then the bullets start flying down the street.
Fuck, man.
And I jump in the car, bullet goes through the back of the car. And then we race off and get back to the villa.
You got the rug.
And it's on the wall back home now as well. It's got no bullet holes in it now. I think I need to take it down the range to give it a bit of authenticity. But,
Fucking
you know, things like that.
Risky behaviour.
Risky behaviour, but really bad choices, you know what I mean? And this is all on the back end of drinking, you know, that alcoholic mind. And, you know, I think in general, you don't have to be drunk. When you're drinking, you don't have to be actually consumed with alcohol to make bad decisions. You know, you're pickled all the time, pretty much. You know what I mean? So you're never in a stable mindset to make really good decisions, and that was it for me. You know, and it's not the. You know, I started then in Baghdad because, you know, the beer shakes and everything else. So I then found Valium.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the next day...
To knock you out.
To knock me out. So the next day I basically, you know, instead of having the beer shakes and everything else and being, you know, all anxious and everything, take a couple of Valium. Next thing I'm addicted to Valium. Now, you don't need to be a mental health specialist to understand that being dependent on alcohol, Valium, and being shot at is good for this. Because don't try it because it's not. You know
aren't you meant to have your wits about you as well? Valium can't be good for that.
No, not at all. But I was so complacent.
Chilled under fucking fire.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Chilling out in the back.
Yeah. Man, don't worry, there's only seven of them.
Mate, they're giving the weapon to the principal. There you go, mate, you deal with it. So it was a, you know, I was glad to get away from there. That, you know, I just knew if I didn't leave by choice, I'd have gone in a box. So.
You're lucky to have survived that. And then when you got home, how was it? Because, you know, you see all these films and everything like that. It's difficult. I feel like as men, you know, everything's about a massive part of men's mental health, I feel, especially with lads these days, especially when you get to like your fucking late 30s. Like I'm coming up to 40, 45, 50, when you reflect and you're like, who am I? What am I doing? What have I fucking achieved? What's going on for me? Oh, I'm worthless. And I really feel like the self-hate and the self-loathing really counts towards getting towards that suicidal feeling or you know, adding to that. When you came out of that, what was the journey like from that to finding yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me, I get a lot of lads actually getting in touch with me that, you know, through Instagram and stuff like that. And I've guided a few lads and they come to me and they say, look, I'm drinking too much. And I always say to them, the step you've just taken is one of the biggest steps. Because the thing is, there's a lot of people drinking and stuff like that, and it's subconscious behavior. They don't actually think they're doing anything wrong. They just think that's normal. So they think that it's okay to be the way that they are. And someone to be aware and recognize that there is a problem is the first major step in the right direction. So I spent a lot of time after that in that space, but I couldn't control the habit. Yeah, you know what I mean, I couldn't control the habit. Then I went across to Southeast Asia and we were rescuing kids. This is where the dots connected for me, right? Because I came back from Iraq and then I came up with all these ideas of getting into property and having this stable life. I was living in Oz. Yeah. You know, I had a beautiful house and everything else, and I was like, yeah, this is great, blah blah blah. And then I heard about this organization called the Grey Man, who were going in and rescuing kids from child prostitution, slavery, human trafficking, basically. Right. So 1.6 million kids a year in Southeast Asia alone, and here's the kicker, they're sold by their families. I just couldn't get my fucking head around it. I was like, sold by their families. So you imagine the people, you know, that you're closest to in your family, and knowing that they then sell you to cover a debt or whatever into that life of debauchery. I couldn't get my head around that. So I was like, I need to get out there and help change the destiny of these kids' lives. So anyway, I ended up out in Southeast Asia then rescuing these kids, and I'll tell you now,
like physically rescuing?
Yeah. So basically the camps were all across the border.
What did they need? Armed forces personnel to kind of do it? Is that what?
Yeah, but the thing is, this is the first time in my life when I did a job that I wasn't allowed to take the tools. You know what I mean? And that was a hard decision for me to do, because basically where the camps were being held, or where the kids were being held in the camps, they'd be held there, and then the cartels would come up through the jungle and they'd recruit them. It'd be like a recruitment process. So some would go off to the brothels, some would go to the sweatshops, some would go to the fishing villages where they don't, it's a one-way trip. You know, they take them on a fishing boat where they're working on a fishing boat. They're used and abused, and when they finish with them, they chuck them over the side. You know what I mean? So, and that for me, so we had to get in there, and we had to be under the guise that we were tourists. So we're like, do we take weapons? And we're like, we had to make the decision not to take weapons. And that was the hardest thing for me, because it's been the tool of my trade, you know what I mean? It's like, so we ended up in the jungle. We actually hid caches of weapons and stuff. So you dig a hole in the ground so you know where the weapons are. But we couldn't actually be caught with weapons on us, because if we were caught, or
just a civilian with a gun, then aren't you?
Yeah, and also they're going to think, if you are caught by the cartels, they're going to think you're DEA,
all right,
Drug Enforcement Agency. So you're going to get killed anyway.
All right,
you know what I mean? So we had to make that decision to drop that. So if we got compromised, it would look, we're just tourists. Blah, blah. So anyway, we were getting in there, getting the kids out, and then what would happen from there? We would get them after they'd come and done the sort of interview process before they came in to collect them. We would get in there, get the kids. And then we would have an orphanage where we'd get donations in from all over the world. And it was incredible. This was like, for me, I wanted to go out there out of some moral duty, but then I realised that the power that gave me, mate, it was the best return on investment I've ever had in my life. I wasn't even being paid. You know what I mean? But it was the best return on investment ever. The reason I say that is because I was at the forefront of knowing how powerful it is to help others. Yeah. Especially when they're less fortunate. You know, and I think that's something that we're losing in this day and age. Everyone's more interested in how many followers they've got on Egogram than fucking helping each other out. You know, even in close-knit teams, we're vying for position. We'll step over our mates to get to that position. We've lost that power of helping each other. And I think...
It's not trendy, is it?
It's not trendy.
Well, yeah, I mean, not doing it properly.
Yeah. So that, for me, was such an incremental moment. For the first time ever, all the dots started to connect. And I went, like, this is far better than the Special Forces. This, for me, was my purpose.
Yeah, you got genuine fulfillment from it, not topping yourself up with action or alcohol or fucking risky behaviour. Yeah. Or, you know, I think I'm doing right, but am I doing right? Is this for my ego? It was ego free.
It was ego free, and it was just so rewarding to me. Spiritual it was, and it was incredible. I've still got the vision of those kids going down, you know, knowing they were going to be sold, putting on that fishing boat, putting in that factory or whatever. I still remember seeing those kids, the vision of seeing those kids walking down the street with a satchel on their shoulders, with their school uniform on, with a smile on their face.
Oh, it breaks my heart, mate.
But the thing is, it caused an international incident. That the organisation who was based in Australia then put a picture of us that we got from this bus. We got 22 kids out, which is relatively small, but it was a big bust. That picture went viral all over the world while we're still in country. And they didn't realise the gravitas of what they were doing. So
basically, they just put a price on your fucking head.
Yeah. And it was like, next thing, there's a manhunt for us. I get a text saying, get out now, you need to get out quick. We were going on to other operations, you know what I mean? And it was like, get out. So we had to escape across the border. We got to an airport and got back to Australia. And going back to your question, this is for me where it all changed. It all changed. I got back to Australia at that point. I crashed and burned. Well, they thought the whole organisation crashed and burned, and I went with it. And at this point, that self-destruct button I'd been so used to pressing in the past, you know, when things get a bit too confusing, it's a lot easier just to numb yourself out with alcohol. I went to the next level. All kinds, you know, like chucking stuff up my nose, also like beyond belief. And it got to such a point where I started thinking about suicide. Yeah. I'd thought about it before, but not to this level. And like at that point, it was a wake-up call for me. And I did hear that voice again that I heard as a 10-year-old boy. And it said, your story doesn't end like this. And luckily for me, I listened to it. And this is the point I said before, you know, because a lot of times you can't see a way out. But going back to that chimp experience, so monumental.
You always have an option.
You've always got an option, always got a choice. And I listened to that. And it was the first time in my life that I actually stopped blaming the outside world for everything. You know, and this is how we're programmed. We're programmed to believe that happiness, success, everything is external. Even when things go wrong, it's not my fault. Blame, 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 blame. Victim, victim.
Why can't I get a break?
Yeah,
everyone else gets it.
This is just the person I am, being given a raw deal. Blah blah, all this shit. It's the first time I took responsibility for where I was. Yeah, all these things had happened to me. The chimp, this, that, and the other. I was there because of my choices.
Fuck.
I was the only person that could do something about that, and that did something incredible to me because it backed me into a corner, and I couldn't blame the outside world anymore, and it forced me to look within, and then I realized that's where the answers are. You can't change anything in your external world unless you change the energy of who you are, and to relate to that for anyone that doesn't really get a grip on what I'm saying there, it's like a relationship, anything. You know, you can be in a relationship, it can be flat and boring and everything else. It can be quite destructive and you think, I'm going to get out of this. It's not serving me any longer. You know, you go to a new relationship, you're on a honeymoon period for a couple of months. And then before you know it, after that couple of months, those old habits and behaviors come in. It's the same old thing again. You know, you can't change who you are unless you change the energy, or you can't change your environment unless you change the energy of who you are. And I realized that in that moment. And from that moment, I started to think about what I was doing all the way through that. I was like, I was hating me, the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
I was hating my environment, hating everything. Why, if I hate it, am I getting more of it?
Yeah.
But then I started to realize the more you focus on anything, the bigger it becomes. So I started, what's the opposite then? Because there's always a yin and yang. I started thinking, what's the opposite to what I'm doing? So I created this vision of who I wanted to be and what that person represented. And once I had that image in my head, I added emotion to what does it feel like to be that person? So when I ever had that negative narration in my head, I would always focus on that. And it's hard work. It's easier said than done. But the more I focused on that, the more that drew me out of that really dark space. And over a short period of time, relatively speaking, my life changed massively.
Is that when you locked yourself away, you said?
That was after that. But basically from that then, that was the starting point, because that when I realized how much I'd changed as a person, I realized that humans
Can change.
Yeah. You know, up until
our
that
thoughts
point,
can change.
Yeah, our thoughts can change. We can change the reality of who, you know, this whole thing about a leopard never changes his spots. That is the biggest load of bollocks ever. You can change and be whoever you want to be, but it takes directive action on your part. So that for me was doing that. And then from that moment, I then came up with the concept of BreakPoint. And that's my business. So BreakPoint is a globally identified brand recognized for the positive growth and development of others. That became my dream in that moment. And that was amplified by coming from Southeast Asia, rescuing those kids, something in the service of others, but then seeing that we can change if we want to change.
Yeah.
And that became BreakPoint. So that became my vision, my dream. And 2 years after that, after I got some kind of level of stability, I was still drinking.
Yeah. Okay.
Still heavily aware of it, still drinking. I didn't believe ever I could stop drinking. And it was all about, at that time, it was a battle. It was battle. I can control it. And I would go you know, I was doing better, but I was still...
You have to work on yourself. You have to get ready to stop.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
You have to get strong to stop.
You do. And the thing is, I got myself into a bit of a stable place, got a decent job, and things were going a lot better. But then I had this dream of BreakPoint, and I said, right, I'm coming back to the UK to start this business, BreakPoint. Now, I came back here, and bearing in mind that mission statement, all about helping other people, I was still broken. Broken people break people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How could I start? And there are a lot of people out there doing it, faking perfection, but how can I be that person that wants to inspire and motivate and change people's lives if I'm still...
Yeah, and not
Still
happy.
broken.
And not happy with yourself.
And abusing myself and drinking and everything else. So I locked myself in a house for 3 months. Didn't know I was going to be in there for 3 months. And that was the mission, to change the person I was, change the energy of who I was. And I went into 3 things: mind, body, and nutrition. I'd do things that I know the lads would laugh at me for.
Yeah.
I know people on this podcast say, didn't expect that and don't believe in it. But I started meditation, started visualization, I started goal setting, listening to positive podcasts. I didn't buy a newspaper, didn't switch on the news, and I focused every day. I came up with this dream of starting this business where I would take people, put them through a mock SAS selection. You know what I mean? So I'd interrogation all this and beast them on the mountains and stuff like this to really get under the skin of who they were. Every day I visualized that, also visualized me being on stage. But when I visualized, I could feel the shirt on my back, the expensive watch on my arm, the shoes on my feet. I put myself there as if I was actually doing it in these meditations. And at the end of 3 months, nothing is happening. I'm like, this is a load of shit. I'm starting, your head, the seed of self-doubt. And I was like getting frustrated. My family was like going, what you up to? I was luckily in a house, one of my family's houses that was available at the time. And they were like getting concerned. I had no money or anything. And it got to the point where I was like, oh, this is rubbish. And I was like so frustrated. I shouted, please give me something. I wanted an email. I started this business, website and stuff. Nothing was happening. And then, please give me something. I wanted something to happen. Nothing happened. And then 2 days after that, Foxy, a best mate from the show and also from my service days, phoned me up and he said, that idea you've got, would you do that on national TV? And that for me, like, I was like, oh my, there is a God.
And that was the beginning.
That was the beginning. That was the change and the beginning. And I'd like to go back onto that because I think this is really important. This is what I actually learned through ayahuasca as well. Something that really makes sense to me, and that's the phrase that I came up with after ayahuasca. Pain screams the loudest when it's dying.
So it tries...
You know what I mean? It's like when you're trying to end something that's been a habit of yours for a long time, let's take it back to a relationship again. You imagine you get to the point of that literal separation and it's screaming the loudest because it doesn't want it to end.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you've got to let go of that. The easiest thing to do is put a Band-Aid on that and just go back to that habit but that's not the way. You've got to understand it's the birth of something new. And you've got to embrace that birth of something new and endure the discomfort.
Oh, it's so fucking true, man. Everything you're saying, I'm just like, it's a bit fucking, it raises your emotions, man. Like my hairs are standing up.
It resonates. It just resonates.
Fucking resonates. Yeah, because I'm like that, especially that last bit that you're like, everything I can relate to. It makes sense to me. The pain that I had to fucking go through to get sober, and then the opportunities that came, like the universe saying, all right, you fucking, you're being honest. Like it's like the universe saying, I see you now. I couldn't see you before.
Yeah.
You were asking for this, but I couldn't see you.
Yeah.
But now I see you. Like,
Ollie, have you read a book called The Alchemist?
You know what? I bought the book. I haven't read it yet.
Because I've started reading it, and what you've been saying reminds me of a quote that I've just read today. It's and when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. And it's like, I feel like when your intentions are pure and you've aligned yourself with it, these opportunities come, and it's so much like synchronicity and stuff like that. It's
100%. And this is what people get wrong, right? You hear so many people saying that, like, I've got to wait for the opportunities to line up.
No,
the opportunities are there. You've got to line yourself up to be able to see them.
Yeah, I'm massive on visualization. I have been for a long time. I mean, like, I visualize what happened on Friday night at York Hall on my 10K runs every week. I went through the paces. I visualized walking in. I visualized knocking them out. I visualized it all, right? Yeah. But I'm very much believe that it's like, I'm torn sometimes between it, because I used to depend on my happiness. Used to depend on the progress, right? On things happening.
Yeah.
But through my sobriety now, like, I got my family back together. You know, I got my little baby girls. I got another kid on the way, and like all of these like nice warm things. My mind is the way that I feel now. I feel like in a position in my life that's so amazing, where I'm like, I visualize the things that I want, but if they come, they come. But if not, I'm good. I feel like
flow state.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so much out there for me.
Yeah.
But whatever is meant to come will come.
Yeah.
But whatever doesn't, that's okay, because look.
Yes. And that is 100% right. You know, that's totally the opposite to when you're drinking, isn't it? Because when you're drinking, it's like you just...
I want everything now. And if it doesn't happen, of course it ain't going to. It wasn't going to happen anyway.
And then you know, after a big session, you're like, oh, what the fuck did I do? And all that, you know, all that fear state and everything else. But really, that's the same thing when it came to the whole thing with SAS, you know, getting that call to offload me. I just went, it's like, it's pain screams the loudest when it's dying, because that was the death of something there. But you've got to then start to look for the opportunities. You know, for me, it's like, oh, that didn't work out. So what's out there then? Something else is there for you. It's meant to be. You know what I mean? This is the way the universe works. And if there's something that I want to get across, and I'm pretty sure you're on the same level here, Dan, is the fact that if people start tapping into that first thing of looking after yourself, really get yourself into a good, solid state. I mean, this to me is being a man, right? If you create a strong foundation, a root system of absolute solid growth, you are a better husband, a better father, a better man, a better employee, whatever it is, to everyone around you. And then once you do that, everything that does happen when you've got that solid foundation, you realize that is destiny. Like you say, oh, that didn't work out. That did. You know, it's just easy, isn't it? Like some people get so resentful when things don't work out for them. And that's the wrong, you know, when you're in a good place, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, I honestly feel it. I honestly feel like it's like, you know, we make deals with us. I feel like, you know, you have this vision of yourself that you want to be, and it's down to you to create that. And when you keep letting yourself down and you're like, man, I know I'm meant to be in, but I'm drinking and I'm sniffing gear and I'm not exercising and I'm arguing with the missus and I'm being selfish and I'm picking this over that person I'm meant to be. It's like you look at yourself and you think, I'm a twat. I don't like myself.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, fuck it anyway. But when you start doing, and this is, I used to think it was wanky when I used to hear people, I always say this, when I hear people saying, you know, I want to, you know, I'm finding myself, or, you know, things like well-being and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
I used to think to myself, oh, fuck off, man. Have a beer or whatever. But when you start putting yourself first, and I mean like really putting yourself first, like realizing that you can't be anything for your kids or your missus or whatever until you start treating yourself first, and then you just see a little glimmer of light. You're like, that's, oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I love what you just said there, because it's so right. The first, when you start doing that, it's like the universe can't see you. I love what you just said there. I'm stealing that, by the way.
Yeah.
And that is, the universe can't see you. You start looking after yourself. You clear all the smog, and then it starts delivering for you. I tell you, there's a really, I don't talk about it a lot because I think it freaked people out a bit, because I don't want to. But when I started doing this, like I came back from Iraq, and like my ex-partner, she was a psychologist, so it saved me fucking loads of money, which is great.
Yeah.
But she said to me, you need to go and see a psychologist. She didn't want to do it because there's that, you know, client confidential, whatever it is anyway. So she was like, you need to see a psychologist. And I was like, right. But she put me in touch with a spiritual psychologist, because I didn't want to go to someone that's going to slide a load of pharmaceuticals across the table. You know, I wanted to, so this person anyway was like, he was the first person that taught me about meditation and everything, and started getting, you know, like breath work and blah, blah, blah. And it was the first time for me I'd started being put onto that wavelength, and I started thinking there's something in this. It started to feel good. But I said to him at the end of the first session, I said, and this is the first time I started really looking after myself. I started questioning the narrative that was in here, started questioning the things I was doing and everything else. And as soon as I started that, I started seeing the numbers 11 everywhere. It was mad. I mean, everywhere. And I said to him, look, I don't know if you can help me here. I think I sound a bit mad, but I see 11 everywhere. And he was like, normally just went, just give us your birth date. And it wrote down my birth date, and he's like, you are, first of all, a child of 11. And when you're seeing 11, 11, 11, it means you're on the right path.
Right.
And honestly, like years later, still now, this is happening to me. Not all the time, but when I'm doing stuff and it's like 11, 11, it's like, I know it sounds a bit freaky out.
No, I know what you mean. It's like things are aligned.
The things are aligning. This to me is like, it's like this weekend I've had.
If you look at the screen behind you, right in the middle.
In the middle, look, 11.
11. Exactly. But this has been the whole weekend for me. I've had a really powerful and amazing weekend with some massive connections. And it's like I got on the train in Taunton to come to London. It was like my reserve seat was K11. I was like, oh. So I got there and I'm like, little old lady in my seat. I thought, I can't get her out of the seat. So I moved to another seat. Anyway, I'm sat down in my seat, look above, half an hour later, and it's like number 47, that's 11. I'm like, and then I'm like, and I started to think a bit more, and then I realized K is actually 11 in the alphabet. Then I get to my hotel room and it's 247. So, you know what I mean? And all these 11s everywhere. It's just crazy. So for me, I know it sounds a lot for a lot of lads out there. You know, when you start looking after yourself, things start to align. The universe starts to work with you and realize and tell you you're on the right path. And the more we can get lads to start believing in this stuff and not think that we're just big lumps of meat and gravy, work, eat, sleep, repeat, that there is a lot more to us than we're led to believe. We can really start to work with our strengths and weaknesses and really start to change those negative behaviours and outcomes.
Oh man, it's you've just described my journey. I'm like, I've just started it. I'm like, getting over the habit and the addiction,
Yeah.
and then thinking, all right, well, what the fuck else am I going to do with my life if I can't drink at the weekends?
Yeah.
And I can't drink, and I don't know what else. All right, okay, I guess I better try and work out who I am. But for me, I don't know if it's the ADHD that I got diagnosed with, or whether it's the years of alcohol and drug abuse. But what I realised very quick when I stopped drinking is that my mind is a wild place. Now, I know you've seen my social media and bits like that. From a creative perspective, I come up with fucking mayhem, right? And call it comedy, and people fucking like characters and everything like that. And that's like a tiny section of my brain, that's great, that I've earned a living out of. The rest, that's like light. I see like that as in like a cartoon. It's a like colour cartoon. The rest of it is dark, right? And it's like mayhem. And through the sobriety, like that mayhem was like, it was too much. I had to fucking read. I had to learn. I had to do this podcast. This podcast has been like fucking 50 episodes, I think we're coming up to, of everyone's psychologists, experts, authors. I just needed to learn about addiction, mindset, everything like that. And the one big thing that I learned that I wish that they taught me when I was a child is that we can control our thoughts.
Yeah.
That we can control where our mind takes us.
Yeah.
We don't need alcohol and drugs or porn and sex or addiction. We don't need relief from our thoughts and our pain.
Yeah.
We can do meditation, for instance. Again, I used to make a joke about it where I'd say meditation, I'd rather sit around and do nothing, right? I used to take the piss out of it. But I know what it is.
Yeah.
I've tried it, I've done it, and it's like breath work, it's like cold water dips. It all comes down to one thing: stopping your thoughts controlling you.
Yeah, 100%. And this again, your thoughts are so influential to everything in your life. A lot of people don't appreciate that. We have 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts going around our head each day. Some people a lot less, you know who you are. 60,000 to 70,000. And then based on the fact that when it comes to our survival mechanism, we are focused on the negative. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
So what do you think the dominant strain of thoughts are?
Bad.
Protection.
What's going to happen?
Survival.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong? It's always looking for the bad in every situation. So it takes a bit of effort to beat through that and start thinking of positive outcomes that you desire. But you can control that. And the thing is, the more this is why a big thing for drinking for me, like when it went into the control thing, right, I was like, I need to control it. I did the first SAS show, and I can remember 2 days before we went in to start filming for the first time, we got out, we went on a mental night, all the lads did. And when I actually turned up for filming, I was a wreck. I never slept. The demons were tapping on my shoulder all night. You know what I mean? It was just a horrible night. And when the cameras started rolling, it actually took me on a relatively short shoot. For the first few days, I was a wreck. You know what I mean? Just trying to get myself back together. So anyway, the second under pressure, yeah, and also just the whole insecurity and blah blah blah, this, that, and the other. Doing something,
out of your comfort zone, cameras, people watching you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Coming from the shadows into the spotlight in such a dramatic way. So when it came around to doing the next series 2, I was like, you know what? This time I am going to make sure I go on set. I'm going to be totally sober. I'm going to give myself a break up until that point. Still, again, my head telling me you're never going to be able to stop drinking. It's always been part of your life. All this kind of stuff. So I'm right. Let me just see if I can give myself a break. I had something to aim for, which was important. But then I just realised afterwards, big rap party, after the cameras stop, everyone gets shit-faced.
I've earned it.
Yeah, I've earned it. I'm going to get absolutely wasted. So anyway, I did that, and we went out to Ecuador in South America, filmed the Jungle SAS show, Series 2. And up until that point, the lads, while we're filming, there was the odd nights to go and have a drink and stuff leading up to the filming bit. And I didn't go, so I was staying away from it, which was good. And it got to the 6 weeks where the filming and everything done. It was that was probably the longest time I'd been off alcohol since definitely about 16, at least 16. And I got to the end, cameras stopped, massive party, everyone getting excited, all the crew, everyone. And Foxy came up to me and he's like, right, come on, mate, let's get fucking wasted. And for the first time ever, I took a breath and I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I said, I've got such a mindset of clarity at the moment. I feel absolutely brilliant. I'm going to just give this a go. I turned around, went back to my room, sat in my room, and I heard the party going on. It was tough. But honestly, the feeling next morning when I woke up, there's still people drinking at 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm going out for a run. And the feeling then was just amazing. And that was my start of sobriety.
Wow. Well, congratulations on
Cheers,
that.
brother.
Congratulations on that. That's so powerful.
But one thing I'll say about that, though, Dan, I did go back into that world.
Okay.
Yeah, we went out to Chile and we were filming back to back. And it was like we had a break between the two filming sessions. And everyone's talking about the drinking. We're going to do this. We're going to get wasted. And I'm thinking, I'm just going to be the odd one out here. You know what I mean? So I convinced myself I come this far. I proved to myself I could control it. I'm going to just have a few drinks, you know what I mean? And honestly, I did drink that night. I made an absolute twat of myself and woke up the next morning like the first time I'd ever drank. It was horrible, you know what I mean? The headaches and everything.
How did you make a twat yourself? Just acting up?
Just being the old Ollie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, obviously I'd not drank for a long, long time. So it was like times. It was like Ollie... adult Ollie, the first time he ever drank, it was like horrible. But then that started 8 months back on the source. You know what I mean? So
oh wow, okay,
8 months back on it, and then it happened that we were just going up to Scotland on a recce, you know, for SAS Who Dares Wins again. And all that week for the recce, I was like getting shit faced with the lads. Even at the airport on the way back, me and Billy were in the airport, like down in pints before we got on our separate flights. And then my missus had gone away for that weekend. She'd gone to Norway to see some friends. And so I was at home alone. And I got back that Friday night, shit-faced. I thought, you know what? I've been working hard all week. I'm just going to do absolutely nothing tomorrow. I'm going to come downstairs, watch TV. And I came down. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. Dog's there, happy to see me, wants to go out. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm just going to lay on the couch. You know, I've worked hard. I deserve this. And I lay on the couch. Beautiful day outside. My head hit the pillow. And honestly, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I heard this voice saying, if you hadn't been drinking, you'd be out there now on the hills, taking your dog out, enjoying the sunshine.
It'd be lovely.
Yeah, and that was it. Bang, I said, never again.
Do you know what? I'm going to use your own analogy. It's like going back to a relationship, isn't it? You know, an ex.
Yes.
You leave your ex. You're like, this is better.
Yeah.
You go, do you know what? I fancy a shag.
You
go back. You end up back with her for a while. And then you get away again, and you're like, fuck that.
I realised why I left in the first place.
I realised why I left in the first place.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing happened to me, mate. I was sober. I went sober because I had to, because my missus and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, she wanted you to go.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I couldn't drink without getting on the packet, right? I could occasionally, but I'd get too excited and then I'd go home, I wouldn't sleep, and then in the morning I'd just be a psycho and just fucking kicking off and that. And, you know, same thing, but instead of the dogs, the kids, I'd lie on the couch and I'd just be like, you know, pass them an iPad and that. And the arguments with her and I went to see a psychiatrist. I started seeing a psychiatrist because I was having these fucking mental breakdowns where like pushing the self-destruct button and kicking off and fucking going mad. I was losing my mind. But she wouldn't see me unless I was sober and off the drugs. And Shelley had enough of it. So I went sober, went counselling, sorted myself out, come to Christmas. Come on, man, look, I ain't got a problem. I'll be all right. And then the same thing, went back. But unfortunately, it was through in the time that I went back to drinking, which I don't know how many months it was a blur. It escalated quicker. Like I was worse. I got married in that time, had the honeymoon in that time, made a lot of mistakes, messed a lot of things up, and then we were a couple of months after getting married, we were, you know, it was falling apart again. And then I was like, I was scared, basically. I was like, fucking hell, this is for real. Like, you know, last time I was giving up because everyone was giving me shit, saying I got a problem. Then I was like, I think I got a problem. It was mad. But yeah, I had to do it. You have to dip your water. Sometimes, I'm not advising that to anyone else. You know, it's really difficult talking about it sometimes because there's people that are suffering. But it's, and I hate saying it, but you know, sometimes you have to stop and then think you can go back to fucking realise.
No, I honestly believe I had to do that to really understand why I gave up in the first place. And the fact for me, one thing, the point I was actually, before I took my detour there, is the fact that for me, once I start drinking, I